Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jack Farmer, his name is Andy Rossi, and this is the Evolution of Movie Show, and this train just keeps on trucking here as we go through the years, year by year. Andy, before we bring our guest on, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Jack. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing fine. I want to get our guest on because it's someone who longtime fans of the show will be very familiar with. Someone who's been on not once, not twice, but I don't know, a bunch of times. I didn't actually count. I'm making this up as I go. Ladies and gentlemen, it's James Shippy, Denzel's stepson, for our video audience.
Wow.
My man. All right. Okay, all right.
Oh, man. How you guys doing?
Good. It's good to see you again. Good to hear that voice again. Just for the record, feel free to use whatever Denzel impressions you want today, because I think we're gonna have a few of them. But it's good to have you back, buddy.
Yeah, it's good to be back, man. Miss you guys. Thanks for bringing me back for all Denzel movies, it appears, or anything Denzel adjacent. I'm here for it. This is good to be back.
That's it.
That's
it.
just Denzel movies.
That's it. That's the tweet. That's it.
You'll be like, it'll be a movie you're in, and we're like, no, we don't need to have James on.
Yeah, right.
Denzel movie, like, get James on quick.
Exactly.
But for people who are new to the show, this is the Evolution of Movie Show, and we call it the Evolution of Movies because what we do is we watch a movie and we chat about it, and we always watch a movie that came out 1 year after the last movie we watched. We started 1980, went to 1981, 1982. Now we're all the way to the year 2001, which still sounds like the future, but it's a time when movies were coming out like Black Hawk Down, The Royal Tenenbaums, and of course, Jason X. But we aren't talking about any of those. We're talking about Training Day, a movie that IMDb describes as a rookie cop spends his first day as a Los Angeles narcotics officer with a rogue detective who isn't what he appears to be. Every movie that I think has someone who isn't what they appear to be always is a good one. But James, had you seen Training Day before, and what were your thoughts going into it this time around?
Never seen it. Never seen it. What is this Training Day you speak of? I had seen it when it first came out. Later on, maybe a handful of times. I feel like this is like probably one of his most iconic roles. Like, everyone's seen this movie. And it was funny because I hadn't seen it in its entirety in a long time. Right, because sometimes it's on, you'll catch a scene here or there, something that you can like quote. It's a highly quotable movie. I loved it. I mean, it was better than like I remember as far as like the story, like the plot. You know what I mean? The Denzel's Alonzo was like, he had a plan. As you know, the famous line, "I'm playing chess while the rest of you are playing checkers," and he really was. If you like really break down the movie, he already had like his pieces in place from the beginning. So it was really cool to watch again.
This, watching it back, I saw it completely differently than I did the first time around. But of course, before we get into that part, I do want to say we have a little game we like to play here at the beginning. It's the Rotten Tomatoes game. Oh, yeah. Andy, you're going to try to guess the Rotten Tomatoes score, and then Denzel's stepson, you're going to try to guess whether or not the actual score is higher or lower. Andy, what do you think Training Day came in at?
Man. This is very difficult. I think Training Day is amazing. Like James said, like, especially seeing it again, like the writing of it is amazing. And obviously the performances, man, this had to get a high ranking. I'm going to go 90.
90%. That puts it in the upper echelon. But Shippy, do you think the real score is higher or lower than 90?
It's got to be lower. Because those Rotten Tomato people.
And I use that term loosely.
Yeah. It's a euphemism. No, I'm kidding. I would think it'd be lower.
I mean, that's a safe bet. 90 is pretty high. And you're right. You're right. It came in, I'm actually kind of surprised, 73%.
73?
Which, by the way, a solid ranking overall. But I'm with Anna. I thought this was a incredible movie. I thought this was going to be up in the higher end of this movie because I feel like
at least like the 80s, I would think.
Yeah,
you would think at least
audience had to be higher.
Yeah, the audience I
Sure.
believe was higher. I never
Probably
take that,
90.
I never write that one down. But yeah, I thought this one like won awards and things too. So I thought, because I think Denzel got Best Actor for this movie, or at
Yeah,
least nominated.
and
He did.
he won, and
Uh,
Ethan Hawke was nominated.
So I was really shocked that this had that rating. I think Rotten Tomatoes needs to go back and recheck that.
Yeah.
But I remember, I haven't seen this movie since it came out, and I remember loving it because, at least for me, this was the first time Denzel was a bad guy that I remember
That's
seeing.
correct. That's
This was
correct.
the first time that he was not the guy you cheer for, and so it was so different from him. And I mean, there's definitely a Denzel style that was still there, but it was the first time like, oh, this guy's, I'm not rooting for this guy.
Mhm.
He scares me. And so I remember just loving it, but going back and rewatching it and maybe just taking the notes and stuff, so much stuff and so much perspective of this movie I had this time through that I did not have the first time through, just as someone kind of watching it, without getting into the nitty gritty. I remember thinking first time through, I was like, yeah, it's about two cops. One of them's kind of a crooked cop, and the other one is a good guy cop, and they kind of figure it out or whatever. But this time through, there's quite a bit more to it than that, and it's just, I was actually blown away. I thought this was a great movie. I was like, this is so much better than I remember it being, and I didn't remember liking it.
73.
Yeah.
Crap.
I have a theory. I think maybe, I mean, if this came out now, I don't know. If this came out now, maybe people might not feel comfortable with it. It's a violent film.
Mm-hmm.
It goes there. I don't know. Maybe that could be some reason why maybe the score wasn't as high as we thought. But there's no denying these two performances are like, this is masterclass in acting.
Mhm.
So I think even those scores, even if they're not higher, I'm sure they all like said the same thing about Denzel and Ethan Hawke's performance, which was just amazing. They were great to watch off each other.
Yeah.
I wonder if the cameos hurt the scores from like critics that sort of have their nose up in the air, because there were some cameos that were fun, but I could imagine a stuck-up critic being like, "Oh, this isn't a good film. This picture is ruined by cameos." You know what I mean?
This isn't true cinema.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if that had
By
anything
the Terry Crews cameo.
Oh, that was priceless. No lines either. That's not a spoiler.
Buff.
Yeah,
Right.
just
well, and that's the thing is this movie,
Extra
a
small
lot of
tank
people were like went on to big careers after this, or this was like the starting point for a lot of people, which was very interesting. So very cool to see a lot of that. Now, I do want to take a second and say thank you to everyone who watches the show, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple. Hit us up on Twitter if you can, and let us know how you watch and or listen or partake in the show. Always cool to hear that. I do want to give a shout out to someone on Twitter who reached out. Eric, you're going to find out just how far behind we are on our recording, because by the time you hear this, it'll have been a little bit. He said on Twitter, it was at Eric76551291. Rolls right off the tongue. At Eric says, I don't care if I'm one of three that watches Evolution of Movies with Real Jack Farmer. It's good. Leave me alone. I appreciate that, Eric. Thank you so much for the kind words.
Hey.
But that means one of you isn't watching the show.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the kind words, and I know Eric is someone who actually checks out the show, because that is a running bit on the show that we've only got a few viewers. So I appreciate you, Eric. Thank you so much for the kind words, and leave us a 5-star review on Apple, and leave a comment in there. We'll get you read on the air. Unless it's like a 1-star.
Eric, this show is for you and the two other people listening. So we're gonna sell out for you, my friend.
Which is my mom. And
do none of us watch this show?
Yeah, I've never listened to this show. Got other things to do.
Well, let's get into this movie. We get the setup, and that is Ethan Hawke wakes up early for a long day of copping. It's his first day with the new department, and he's meeting Denzel Washington at a coffee place to watch him read the paper. Hawke tells a story about busting a drug dealer, but Denzel wants to hear if Hawke hooked up with his fellow officer. Denzel and Hawke get to know each other, and Denzel explains how things work. Understanding the streets, hiding your love life, They watch Denzel's informant and catch some guys buying drugs. They scare him real good and steal their drugs. And when Hawk won't smoke it, they stop in the middle of an intersection. And Denzel explains that in the streets, you need to do things if you want to survive. Ethan Hawke gets super high and then is told he didn't smoke weed. He smoked PCP. James, tell us about this world that we inhabit and the characters that live in it.
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny because I forgot that he was married and had like a baby, you know. So it's all these extra things at stake as he's Ethan Hawke's character, Hoyt. What a great cop name, Hoyt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That he was going into this like he was leaving one world, right? I think he grew up in the Valley. They even said North Hollywood High School. He was a ball player there.
Strong safety.
Yeah, strong safety. And then he goes to like LA proper, you know, like where all the crime is, you know, like, and he, you know, he's going into the, I don't know, the lion's den, I guess. And I mean, the thing is, initially, he's kind of wide-eyed. And the thing I love about this movie throughout, he is the eyes and ears for the audience. We're pretty much him. He's serving as like our eyes and ears throughout the movie. And, you know, that first time meeting Denzel, I mean, he's scary, actually, and unpredictable. And you want to, I think the amazing thing with this movie, as you said, because Denzel had never played a bad guy before, he's also kind of gotten so much cachet with audiences for being like a mentor and a man of virtue and like that good guy. So we're kind of eating out of the palm of his hands, and we want to listen and believe everything that comes out of him. And hence, that's what Ethan is. He's there to please him. And, you know, he just keeps going down this rabbit hole of like seeing how, I don't know, crooked Denzel is and how different. And I just love when they get inside that car, right? It's like, oh, the car, he's like, oh, it's unlocked. Like that's how much how much fear, or that's his reputation in the streets, is he has a car like that and he doesn't even lock it. And he's like, you know, you in the office, baby. You know, like
it's such a perfect intro too to Denzel, because 2001 this movie came out, so they dropped Still Dre and just that dun, 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 that song that pops in, and then you just got him revving that engine, and then I forget what kind of car it is, but it's like
Monte Carlo. Yeah,
just totally perfect for Denzel's character. Just so awesome, such an awesome intro.
What a flashback to 2001 too, with the hydraulics as well. It bouncing around. It was cool to see. But Andy, I do want to, as someone who's produced your own movie recently, Dead Body, available on Amazon now. Check it out, 5-star review it. I want to talk to you a little bit about camera work and effects. When Ethan Hawke gets high, they start to do this weird kind of color and skewed filming. That was just a popular thing back in 2001. That kind of style.
Yeah, and I have not smoked PCP yet, so I'm not sure if that is how you start seeing, but I imagine, you know, I've had a lot of beers before and that's kind of how you start seeing a little bit. So I think they do a good job of that, because it definitely like lets the viewer know like he's no longer really in the right state of mind anymore, and it makes Denzel Alonso like so much more scary when he's like almost like a nightmare. You're just like you're already with the scary guy who the weirdest thing is, let me read my paper. It's like, how awkward is that? You're just sitting. I just felt like I'm like, I don't know what I would do, because I like to talk to people, and then you're just like, you know, it's 2001, so he couldn't play with his phone or anything. He's just at this place has to keep quiet. But anyways, you meet this crazy guy, and now you're on drugs, and then the guy's like, I don't know, it's terrifying.
Well, and that was I think what was great about this opening scene is you see that there's almost this game of cat and mouse with him being played right away, and having to figure out like, is this okay? And you're off guard and right away with this guy. And even as a viewer, you're like, to your point, Andy, what would I do? Like, would I just say, forget you, I'm just going to go get something to eat or whatever? But he's also his boss, kind of. So he can't be a jerk, but also he's just an intimidating person too. And so, and also when he just stops in the middle of the intersection and points a gun at him, and you can tell there's zero social pressures on this guy. He does not care. There's not a safe space, so to speak. You know, even you could be in the middle of a crowded area and it doesn't matter. He's going to be he's going to be crazy. He's going to be a psychopath, which I think sets things up. And James, I guess you have the final point on this, but to your point, as a viewer, and even still to this day, Denzel Washington just has such a likability factor to him. I still feel like he's supposed to be someone I trust and, root for in movies. I still, at this point in the movie, wasn't fully sold on this is a bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, and he does this throughout the movie as we see. That's why when I'm looking at his performance this time, his performance is not as simple as bad guy, good guy. There's so many layers to his character, especially as we see the desperation build in him. And it's very subtle. He's not someone that, cries on his knees, or it's like he's very prideful, but yeah, I mean, as you said, we trust him, and he, like I said, we're talking about a career that is at that point maybe span almost 20 years. I feel like he started like acting professionally like in the early 80s, right, or the mid 80s and stuff. And as you said, when they stop in the middle of the street, he has no shame. And he doesn't fear anything, it looks like. So, and that's a very like wild card. And he's a person in position of what's the word I'm thinking of? Like authority. And that's what makes it so tough, because Ethan really wants something from him, and he's entering a world he doesn't know. So you remember at one point he tells Denzel very early, even before he smokes, and he's like, "Hey, I'll do anything you want me to." And Denzel's like, "Okay, all right, okay." He kind of looks at him like a piece of meat.
Right.
He's always kind of look at him, he kind of does that Denzel like side eye thing, the women and men swoon over.
Oh yeah.
Very clear.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah, of course.
There's three things I wanted to mention during this part, by the way. Speaking of Denzel, when he's got the gun to his head, I had it on closed captions. He says pooping ass. Pooping ass. I don't know. I just thought that was such a weird thing.
I saw that. I didn't think much of it. I just let it go. I was like, oh, okay, maybe that was a thing. Maybe that's the thing that they use.
Says it, it's cool.
Yeah. I was just like, it was like the last thing he said. I'm like, okay. And then I liked how Denzel said he's talking about, Hoyt's wife and baby, and he goes, "Yeah, I don't really want to talk about my family." And he goes, "So you guys F face to face?" Like, it's like he literally just said, "I don't want to talk about it." And of course, that's his next thing. He's like, "Oh, I think we're going to talk about it."
But that's the beauty of this character, is he's very not confrontational. Like he wants to push his buttons. And but then he also says that great thing about how one of the big things about how he acts is about how you need to be willing to do certain things if you want to survive. You need to be willing to forget that you have a family. You need to forget, you need to be willing to smoke weed or do drugs, or whatever, because if you don't, I mean, basically everyone's going to know you're a cop and no one's going to trust you. And you know what I mean? Like
which is so scary.
Yeah.
Which is so scary. I guarantee that happens. If you're like a undercover police officer, you got to do what they're doing.
You got to cross the line. And that's what's so confusing, because as you said, we're watching Denzel, and he would say these crazy things, have him do crazy stuff, but also like, as far as like kind of mentoring him, well, I'm doing this because you need to be prepared for this. And it makes sense, even though we're thinking in our head, like, this doesn't seem right. This is not protocol, but it makes sense. Like, if you're undercover, you got to be undercover. So you got to be all in. You can't wear your wedding ring. You can't say, "Oh, I'm not going to smoke this," or pistol whip that person, or do whatever. You got to be all in.
Right. And that's kind of the theme of the movie. And maybe one of those subtle things, and what was great about the acting of Denzel here and the writing, is that little seed that's planted. Everything he does after that kind of buys him credit, because you're like, well, he's explained to us, you got to be able to do certain things. So maybe this is the right way. I don't know. And maybe even for Ethan Hawke's character to be like, I got to follow along.
I wanted to mention one more thing. I just thought this was funny because they played the Still Dre for Denzel's introduction, which I thought was a perfect song. The other perfect song I thought is when they went to those kids. They were like supposed to be like college kids or something that they got the drugs from. They were blasting Papa Roach in their car. I just thought that was like a perfect song for these dumbass college kids.
Of course. Papa Roach.
Or maybe All the Small Things, Blink-182. I feel like they'll be playing that too.
2001, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that could have been playing at that point. But what seems like about an hour after smoking PCP, they stop at Denzel's friend's house, Roger, whose name we find out later, and they talk about understanding the streets. And after leaving, Hoyt sees some guys trying to rape a girl and stops them. Alonzo laughs about it before getting terrifying again and then letting everybody go. Alonzo explains that they don't patrol, they do investigations. And Alonzo says the line that I think explains the movie a lot here too is to protect sheep, you have to catch wolves, and to catch a wolf, you need to be a wolf. Andy, I want to kind of talk to you more about the Alonzo character. And I was thinking at this point, it's interesting how he breaks people down. He kind of pushes and pulls throughout this whole movie where he's like, you're an idiot. You don't understand. This is how you do things. You're never going to catch up to, wow, you've got a great eye. You're going to be really amazing at this. Stick with me, kid. You're going to be awesome.
Psychological this warfare. I don't know. I was watching the movie thinking that I would crumble so fast. Like I would just be like, whatever you need, man. Yeah,
I would make it out of the coffee shop.
Need me to take the money? I don't care. Whatever you need me to do. Because it's so crazy when Ethan Hawke's kind of getting beat up by those two guys that he just walks up, takes a cigarette out, and just starts watching. I'm like, man, like most people would go help him, and just to show like Alonzo's like, I'm gonna see how this plays out. Like he's so scary. Yeah, but I'd probably want to fight those guys by myself to show Alonzo that I could do it. Look at me, I could do it.
But James, this does kind of imperfectly encapsulate sort of where these two different guys are coming from. It was a small part of the movie, but I wanted to separate it on its own because you do see the Hoyt character like, no, I am on the street. I am fighting every criminal. I am getting my hands dirty. Where the Alonzo character saying, look, man, that's for the garbage men. Let the garbage men pick up garbage. Yeah. We're doing the big stuff, and you've got to let that slide if you want to get the big stuff.
Yeah, actually, it's fun. It's good that you isolate. Actually, that scene is like really encompassing who these characters are, right? Mm-hmm. Because Ethan, once again, him being the eyes and ears for us, and what makes him so likable in this movie, this is probably his most, well, he's likable in pretty much most stuff he's in, but he's an incredible actor.
Except for this new one out, Black.
Oh yeah, I think in the new, yeah, it looks scary.
Moon Knight, he was a bad guy too.
Oh, he was? Okay, I haven't seen that.
His daughter's a good person in Stranger Things.
Stranger Things, you're right. From what I hear, yeah, I know his and Uma's daughter, yeah. Right, so those two beautiful people procreating. So, Ethan Hoyt is a man of virtue. And he's brave and it's valor. So, those attributes that I'm giving him, those can kind of be overdone sometimes in movies, but it's not in this. But that's what he encompasses. Also idealism, because he says throughout the movie, like the reason why he's becoming a police officer, because he wants to like get bad guys off the streets, and he wants to protect the citizens. Like, that's why he's doing this. He's doing it all for the right reasons. And Denzel is someone that's been in the game a long time. And what happens, like, it doesn't matter what line of work, you've been in the game a longer time, you might be more cynical about like the virtues of what like industry you're in, right? So, and Denzel just kind of sitting back. And that's an iconic scene when he kind of just leans on that, the side of the building and watches him. I feel like that scene was always in trailers for the movie. And the thing that's so scary that like at that point, that's when Denzel's having fun in the role, because he takes out both. That's when he brandishes both of his like silver, handguns, and he's kind of like rubbing them up against each other and talking. The guy, told him to, fillet him pretty much, and you don't say that to Denzel, okay?
No. Denzel says, "What does he say? Which nut you want?"
Yeah, and and it's such a weird thing because he like put both guns together in a handle, and like I guess
hammered the nail.
Yeah, he hammered the nail. There you go, attaboy.
But he was so terrifying in this. Like, I was thinking of this, and not to cut you off, but I was thinking about this. They made me like concerned for the rapists. That is how terrifying he was. Like I went from like you think in any other situation you'd be like, yeah, get him. Where this I was like, oh, those guys have got to get out of there.
Yeah, like take it easy on these guys. Yeah. You're right. I would say, okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one that thought that. At a certain point, and this is purposefully from Antoine Fuqua, the director. I mean, he directed a real gritty film, but yeah, you're worried about the well-being of these two rapists at this point. The sexual assaulters, you're like, hey, take it easy on these guys. Like,
like how scary, how well done does that scene have to be for me to totally flip my thought on these characters here in the same moment? It's not like they had a redeeming arc where like they changed who they were. They even to the very end they were still terrible people, but I was like, oh, I'm glad they got out of there okay.
I don't know.
Alonzo's, I don't know if I said glad they got out of there okay, but like
the second guy should have had something happen to him. That first guy got it pretty bad. The second guy was talking all sorts of stuff about her being 14 and whatnot.
Oh yeah, no, he
that
was
guy
a real creep.
Yeah,
he should have had his teeth kicked in. Okay,
yeah, that guy. And I thought for some reason I remembered. I'm like, yeah, I think Ethan Hawke punches him in the face. But no,
that's what I'm thinking. They'd like kick him at least. But he got the wallet.
He got the wallet. Yes, he picked that up. Which is one of my favorite things about movies is when stuff happens, it matters.
Yeah, exactly. I did like one line here I wanted to mention. Yeah, the wallet matters. We'll be back. He says, "Let the animals wipe out the animals."
Oh yeah,
that was kind of
great
line.
And
he calls Ethan Hawke at one point Betty Boop. There's just so many. I'd love to know like how many, and we'll get to his line towards the end, but how many lines were scripted and how many was Denzel just doing Denzel things. It just seemed like a lot of like this is like very interesting lines that he would pop in there. So,
but that line you mentioned, letting the animals wipe themselves out, the street, they talk about street justice. That's also a big part of this movie that continues on as a thread that pulls through to the end. And as we continue on, they go to buy some crack from Snoop Dogg, and then they get him to barf up some drugs and get him to rat out the dealer, a fellow by the name of the Sandman. This leads them to illegally search Macy Gray's place and steal some stuff. We get a shootout with a local gang, and Denzel shows just how badass he is. This shakes up Hoyt, and Alonzo reminds him, do you want to be a wolf or do you want to be the guy that helps people stranded on the side of the road? James, I was wondering watching this, it seemed like maybe this was Macy Gray trying to step away from singing and getting into acting, but when she tried to walk away, she choked.
I see you did.
Stupid. That was dumb. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that some? I don't know her music that well. Is that like
say goodbye
and I choke?
Oh, there you go.
Walk away and I stumble.
Okay, yeah, my wife will get on me because she's a huge Macy Gray fan.
What?
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. A little inside thing.
Nothing wrong.
I know, right?
What a random.
I know it's very random. Well, only reason I know that because Macy Gray has the same agent I have, voice work, and I saw her one day in the office. And I was like, I should have went up to her. And I told my wife, she's like, you should have went up and got an autograph or called me. I was like, well, come on. I mean,
try to walk up to her and choke.
Yeah. So that was like my little brush with Macy Gray. I almost forgot that she made a cameo in this. And when you talk about her and Snoop and another artist, I don't know if I can say his name in this, what was beautiful about this, and this is Fuqua once again painting this gritty picture of LA. He has these musicians perform parts that are a little different than what we're used to seeing them in the public eye. Like, Snoop, even though, he kind of comes from kind of a rough background, it was interesting seeing him like this. They put him in a wheelchair and he was still defiant. You know what I mean? And all that crazy stuff. And obviously with Macy Gray, I mean, almost unrecognizable. It was very jarring to see her in that role. And I thought it was so crazy with Denzel. Once again, Hoyt's watching him work. And he brought the warrant was a takeout thing. And I just wanted to say another thing, because I had made a note. I don't know if you guys noticed, but her nephew Dimitri is an actor by the name of Denzel Whitaker, and he was the grandson in the Nicolas Cage movie we saw. God, I can't think of the name of it.
Are you talking about
the Bad Lieutenant?
Yeah, Bad Lieutenant. He was the
really.
And I think Eva Mendes, I don't know if she was in that too.
She's in Bad Lieutenant. Yeah.
Okay, so look at this thread here.
Go.
So, but that was a younger Denzel Whitaker because he played the nephew then, but he was a little boy then.
I'm
I didn't know that
glad
till I
you
saw
said
it.
that because I was like, I know this actor. I know he grew up to be somebody, but I couldn't remember who you. I couldn't replace it. I was like, I'll look it up later, and then I forgot to look it up.
Yeah, no, I was kind of blown. I was like, oh wow, he was in that too. Like, but he was, was a lot younger, and it was a great little thing they had there with Ethan Hawke. He's trying to like talk to them and be cool. He's like, she's calling him a rookie. Everyone's calling him a rookie, right? He's a newcomer, and he's like, hey, just give me a break. He's just always nice and like full of virtue, even though he's in all these like harrowing situations. So you just like, you kind of feel bad for him each time because this guy just really wants to move his way up the company, so to speak, but he's doing all these illegal things.
Yeah. And Andy, to follow up on that, this is a perfect example of he's trying to be the nice guy, like as James is saying, but the fact that he wasn't the, I guess, bad guy that Alonzo was, Macy Gray saw that and just walked all over him,
right?
In this, because she could see that he wasn't the same type of person that Alonzo was, and it kind of, as a viewer, you're like, Alonzo's right. You kind of have to have that tough, do whatever it takes attitude, or you're going to get walked all over.
Yeah, I mean, and especially, I think at this time, Hoyt, I don't think he knew that it was a takeout menu for the warrant, so he was probably just like, trying to do his job, trying to do it. Because I think if he knew that, maybe he wouldn't have been so, much trying to do his job. But yeah, he definitely, he was a little too nice, and Macy took advantage of it.
They did a great job, and this is the first time, I think, if I remember, they really went to like a bad neighborhood where they did a great job of making it. I think this is some of the movies I love when they're able to do this, make it feel like you were really in a bad neighborhood, or in a neighborhood that police probably shouldn't be hanging around at. And with the gang right there, and just like, you just kind of get that vibe, like this isn't like a good place to be. And the way this was directed or filmed or whatever, they just did a great job making you feel like you were in a bad neighborhood throughout this.
That's one of the big things this film was known about. I remember, obviously being, I was in Texas at the point when this movie came out, but it was well known that they filmed in certain areas where the police can't go to, but pretty much like they were able to work that out with the neighborhood and work it out with the gang members and stuff. Like those are real like gang members that are there, and like pretty much getting permission to like do this film there. So that's what makes it so authentic and scary and real. Jesus, 20 years later, 21 years later watching.
And the fact that he goes in those neighborhoods knowing that they're going to shoot at him, and him coming out of the car with the one gun sideways and the other one the right way is just amazing. Like, and he's almost getting like turned on by it. He's just like firing at these guys and just like enjoying. He's very much enjoying getting shot at and being able to shoot at these dudes because he knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that was a big character moment, I think, for him, because that's where, as a viewer, you realize too, like, oh, he will, like, he's not just playing when he stops in the middle of an intersection or pulls out his gun. He will unload on people when when he needs to. He will kill you, and so that makes everything he does later that much heavier. Like, he does not care getting into a shootout in the middle of a street. He does not care about this stuff. Going into this person's house while there's all these people right outside that can kill him. I thought as a character, this was a very big, like, yeah, this guy will go not just cross the line, he will skip over it and keep on running.
And he'll make you puke up your crack.
Oh my God, it's so disgusting.
Can we talk about how Snoop says it's the Sandman? Isn't the Sandman from Half Baked? That's all I kept thinking of. What do you like?
I think it's Samson.
Samson. Oh man.
Oh yes.
The whole time I kept thinking it was Sandman. Samson. Yeah. Okay. All right. Then it's okay.
Not to go too far into it, but I want to double back on something James said a second ago, because I wanted to comment on it and I forgot. But you made a great point about how all the cameos are people in very different situations as far as like Snoop is in the wheelchair, and we'll just say Dr. Dre later is he's a cop. It's not like they're just playing themselves. I mean, they're actually put in situations that make them different, and I think that was cool from a just putting the movie. I don't know if you'd call that casting or directing or whatever on that end, but also from them saying, yeah, I'll take a role that makes me, doesn't make me look like a cool gangbanger or whatever. I'll be the guy in the wheelchair that barfs up crack,
So good.
Yeah.
Is it mean to say that Snoop pretty much looks the same and Dre does not?
I don't know. I haven't seen Dre. I mean, yeah, Snoop pretty much looks the same. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think his hair's longer. That's the
yeah. That's about it. I mean, all that ganja smoke, right? All that sticky icky has been doing him well, man. Right?
So they continue, and then they go from there to a really bad neighborhood where they release pigeons to let the neighborhood know the cops are there. I'm guessing nowadays they just use a WhatsApp group, but I digress. They go to Eva Mendez's house, and there they, Alonzo and Mendez, they hook up. I'm guessing, I don't know, they step off screen for a while. And I'm guessing while they're fooling around, Hawk and the kid hang out until Alonzo is done and it's time to leave. Andy, how long was this day? Like, I feel like this is one of those days where, like,
this is the longest shift ever.
They got breakfast. He got high. He came
10.
down.
He said, meet me at 10.
At 10. Then he got high. Then he came down. Then they went and met a friend. Then they went to search someone's house. Then they went to Mendez's house.
Stopped a rapist.
He took a nap. Oh, they stopped the rapist.
Yeah.
And it's like 3 p.m. at this point.
A lot's going on.
But yes, that was just my note. This is my note says specifically, this is a long ass day.
Yeah, this already seemed like it was like 9 o'clock at night when this happened. And another one of great Denzel lines. He says, "All that jelly, no toast."
That is a fantastic line. But this is, and James, to go to you on this one. What I loved about this whole bit, though, and one of the reasons I wanted to isolate this bit as well, is this kind of shows just how ingrained Alonzo is in this world. Like, he's not just, I think a lot of us view cops as people who are like sort of on the outside and they kind of will get involved and then go back home. But like, this is his life. This isn't a job. He is part of this.
Yeah. Yeah. He's about that life, as they say, right? Like, he's fully ingrained in the life. He comes in there. He kind of walks around like he owns the place. Right. And it's funny, we kind of get a glimpse of maybe what the gangsters feel about him really is when they like the one dude who looks like he's been in a lot of these kind of movies that he probably really is from the streets. And, but, he's like, oh, thanks for what you did for my cousin. And, And then as soon as like Denzel's character walks away, he's like, man, I can't stand him, which we'll come back to later. Right. Because we need to know. Because at that point, before he said that, we're just assuming like, oh, all these street people just love him, like he's of the people as he claims he is. But look, I'll be honest, like the suspension of disbelief was affected at this part of the film because I didn't realize how like hood this area was, and then you have Eva Mendes living there. That just doesn't fit, okay, for so many reasons.
I'm so glad you said that too, because I was thinking if that's his like main girlfriend and that's his son, wouldn't he have put them up in like a nicer place?
Right? Maybe. But he has money issues, as we'll find out later. So we don't know. But still, for so many reasons, even culturally, like you would not expect her to live in that neighborhood. It makes more sense for her to live in another neighborhood we see later, which I can't tell which neighborhood's more scarier, to be honest with you. We'll talk about that. But yeah, Eva Mendes, as much as she tries to play, she's trying, I guess, to play like his hood side chick. It just doesn't, I wasn't buying it. Okay. No. I wasn't buying it. Ryan Gosling's wife. Was living in this kind of squalor, I just wasn't buying it.
There's a number
kid, though.
There's a number of things, to your point, that I think makes that not work out. But at the very basic, I always say, I feel like if Alonzo didn't get her out of there, I feel like someone would have.
Of course.
Like someone would have come along.
Someone would have saved
come
her.
Come on.
Okay. It's Eva Mendes. Someone would have gotten her out of there, plucked her from, from obscurity and put her up in a nice place in the valley or something.
I gotta imagine someone would have said, "Hey, come live with me."
Did you notice the stepson? I mentioned it earlier, though. He had like a really long braided ponytail.
I didn't notice that.
I didn't notice until later in the film.
Yeah.
I saw where'd the ponytail come from?
I was like, okay.
What if they added it last minute? So it's like a continuity issue.
So they added. They're like, no, this kid needs a ponytail.
Yeah, we need to make sure he looks completely like he could be mixed. Like just add a ponytail. It's like a clip on.
Go get another clip on tail.
Where do you think Denzel met Eva Mendes, by the way? How do you think that happened? I was kind of thinking that too. I'm like, how did these two even meet?
Like at a laundromat or a car, like a car wash, Chick-fil-A, something. You can see him going up to her in Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Like, okay. All right. Okay. Was that number one? All right.
Okay. Yeah. He would. Okay. I don't think he'd have any problem shooting a shot at a Chick-fil-A.
No, of course not.
His character.
I don't think he'd have a problem shooting a shot anywhere.
No,
probably
not. And if you're Denzel Washington, you probably shouldn't.
No,
or any character that a Denzel Washington would play.
It just reminded me of James when he did that impression. Reminded me of the guy from Game Night. Remember he hits on the gas station,
great.
But it's not Denzel.
Oh yeah, that's so good. It's such a great bit. The nose. It was the nose. That's
Should be like, yeah, Denzel Washington met me at Chick-fil-A.
What was he driving again? Oh, a Honda Civic or something like that.
So after this, they go, and this is where like the real bulk of the movie, like the real the heat of the movie starts.
Yeah.
They meet some high-powered law enforcement guys, and they don't seem all that impressed by Alonzo. They talk about how Alonzo made the Russians angry and that Alonzo's a dead man. But Alonzo says he'll be fine. He'll just cash in an old account. So they spend $40,000 on a warrant, and they gather up Dr. Dre and friends to go on a mission. They break into Roger's house and dig under the kitchen, find $4 million, keeping $1 million of it, and then they kill Roger. They then set it up to make it look like Hoyt is the hero. Hoyt doesn't like it, but Alonzo convinces him to play along. Hoyt then says that it was basically armed robbery and murder, and Alonzo reminds Hoyt that this is the game and Roger is a bad guy. Alonzo then says, if you want anyone to trust you, you need to have a little dirt on you. Again, it's just another... I know this movie's filled with cool quotables as far as funny stuff. But there's also a lot of quotables as far as what this movie is about. And that was also, I think, a big part of it. You have to have a little dirt on you. And this was where Hoyt finally gets some specific dirt on him. But Andy, talk to me, just walk me through this, what's going down with the Russians and explain the story. I'll be honest, I was kind of confused watching when this happened.
I was just like, oh, Roger. I couldn't believe they killed Roger. They seemed like his buddy earlier. And James,
because he knows his first name.
Scott Glenn, I think is the
Scott
actor.
Glenn. Yeah,
he's great. And I thought
grizzled actor, very grizzled.
I was not expecting I'd seen the movie before, but I was not expecting him to come back and for all that to happen. But it's just, Denzel's kind of a mastermind to kind of figure this all out and have it all together. But I liked his cast of ruffians too. He had Dr. Dre, and then he had the Pulp Fiction the rapist, the ball gag guy.
Oh yeah, that's what he was from.
Is it Ted? Ted's dead or
Zed?
Yeah, is he dead? Is that Zed? Or
that's who he was. I'm so glad you said that. I was trying to figure that out the whole time I was watching the movie.
Yeah,
he's also the villain in The Mask.
I was like,
these guys do not look like these guys. These dudes do not look, not even like undercover cops. They look so greasy and untrustworthy. These are bad guys. These cops, especially the one that takes it. But it's a great scene, okay, you're gonna take a couple of hits coming through the door. Like he's planning it all out. Like it says, like his chest. you know, and like he actually shoots the guy, and I guess a bullet kind of goes through the vest.
Yeah.
You know, and the tension when he hands Hoyt the gun and says, you know, all right, shoot him. And you know, we're all like there with him, and he's like, "You really want me to shoot him? Like, come on!" Like,
even Roger was asking about it though. That's what I was confused at. He's like, "Yeah, shoot me," and I'm like,
yeah,
wait, what's he doing? Does he
yeah.
want to be killed?
But I think he's having fun because, like I said, he's not under no impression he thinks they're gonna try and kill him. And then you know, like Hoyt like goes boom, like you know, like faking it, and no one's laughing, you know. And he's like, you know, tells him to close the blinds. I was like, man, that's
when
like
it gets scary.
Yeah, there's and we'll talk about it later. This movie actually has a lot of horror tropes in it. Alonzo's almost like a horror like character, bad guy at one point.
Yeah.
But that scene, I was just gonna say real quick, that scene in the car when he's talking to him about all the stuff, you know, you can clean up the streets, you can do better than me. I think that scene encompasses all the nuance of his character, because at one point he seems angry, he's upset. He feels like kind of remorse for like the kind of stuff he's had to show Bobby Hoyt or Officer Hoyt, and he's getting into his theatrical Shakespearean bag, which we'll see full throttle at the end of the movie, I would say. So
yeah, and
yeah.
What just even again, I don't have the like acting chops or things like that, but like just to see him, like we've talked about the subtleness of it, and not. I think it'd be so much easier for someone to come and say, "Yeah, I'm a jerk and I'm gonna be mean, I'm gonna yell at people and all this other stuff," but to do the things like, no, you can make a difference. You can be better than me, but also at the same time, I want my money. Give me what I want. You know, I'm also the confrontational guy. There were so many layers to who he was, as opposed to just being I'm a crooked cop, like the guy that was in Pulp Fiction, who you like. Not a shot at his character called for certain things, but he was a very one-dimensional, I don't trust this guy character, you know. But I'll be honest, I was kind of confused about this part though, and when I watched it, and I actually rewound the high-powered meeting because I was confused about like where the Russians came in and what exactly happened there, and call it cashing in an old account, and I guess this is my last thing, and maybe Andy, maybe you can help me out with this. Was Roger the Sandman?
I have no idea who the Sandman was. I do know another cameo there though. Tom, what's his name from Major League was one of the.
Tom Berenger.
Tom Berenger was one of the.
Yeah, he's one of the guys. Yeah,
he's one of the three wise men. Well, I understood with the Russians, like he was out in Vegas and he killed one of the Russians, right? That was
it gets clarified later. At this point, it's not completely clear, actually, until the scene with the Latino dudes. Like that's when because I mean they pretty much explain everything, you know.
But I never knew who the Sandman was either.
Does the Sandman, does that matter? Does that ever come up again, or is that just a red herring? Because I just kind of assumed maybe Roger's the Sandman, but that doesn't. You know, but there's a line here too that was great. I wanted to say when Hoyt is like, "You've been planning this all day," and he's like, "I've been planning this all week."
Yes, that was a great line. That was a great line.
Which then makes you go back and realize everything that happened along the way was leading to this little thing. Going back to the checkers thing that you mentioned earlier, James.
I love though, really quick, when they're in that car, because so much stuff is saying, and he's like, "Look, man, it would behoove you to take this money. You're really upsetting the boys." He's like, "I don't give a damn about what they feel." And at one point, as he was still talking, Hoyt says what we're all thinking. He says, "You guys are insane." Like, I'm not playing this game. Like, I'll go give tickets and save cats back in the valley. Like at that point, I mean, because he just witnessed murder, as he said. You know, it's such a great scene in that time.
And he saw Roger earlier going like, "Well, I'm gonna stay in, save my money. I'm gonna go to Fiji or wherever it was." So it's like, oh, this guy's gonna have a nice little life. But that happens in almost every movie. You're like,
of course,
man, I can't wait for my future. Man, things are gonna be great.
It is sort of one of those like Sixth Sense, Usual Suspects things, where once he dies and you think back to things he said, you're like, oh, it was obvious he wasn't gonna make it. Like at the time, you don't think about it, like, oh, he did everything that the person who's gonna die does. He's like, yep, I have one more day, and then,
just one more day.
I have all my money in the floorboards over there, which, only you know about.
Only you trustworthy gentlemen know about. But also the idea that they don't trust, like the guys don't trust you for not taking the money was something I got like before, but I did like this next scene that we'll talk about resonate a lot more with me this time, kind of really understanding that. When they roll up to a party and no one is excited about them being there, Hoyt starts playing cards and they take a look at his gun and they realize that Alonzo has left Hoyt all on his own. And they explain that the Russians are going to kill Alonzo if he doesn't pay them $1 million. They're about to kill Hoyt when they find out that the girl he saved earlier was one of the guy's cousins. Now, there's a lot I want to get to on this scene.
So terrifying.
This is absolutely terrifying.
Nightmares.
But I never understood. Honestly, I watched this. I just kind of brushed over it, but I didn't really get why he got left there the first time I watched it. I was like, oh, Alonzo's just a jerk. But James, I want you to speak on this a little bit. Mm-hmm. It was because he didn't take the money, right?
Exactly. It's and maybe if if he took the money, then he would know he was all in. Right. Mm-hmm. Because although he's like, oh, we've got all these other witnesses, but he could still try and upset the apple cart. Just, mm-hmm. He'd be the Serpico, right? Like he's willing to do that. So, I mean, you got to you got to get rid of that loose end. And I mean, what more way to say, I'm going to use the restroom. And I didn't realize like how long he was not in that scene. I almost forgot how short, like he just honestly went in there and, he was in that kitchen just a little bit longer before Hoyt's character walks in. So he's already kind of like talking to him real quick, like giving him the skinny and all that stuff. And it's so scary, that scene. You got is it Tuco, right, from the Breaking Bad?
Yes.
And I mean, it's like he was already practicing for that role.
It's scary.
He's so scary and unpredictable. And he's supposed to be the non-smart one, but I'm more afraid of him. Talking about getting his what pushed in.
Yeah.
The way he says that line, it's just like I gotta go.
And it's so great because Hoyt is like, he's trying to loosen up because they're like, how long you been a pig? And he's I've been a pig, and he sits down and plays cards with them. And it's so much tension filled. That was probably one of the most tension filled scenes in a movie. Mm-hmm. A movie full of tension. That one there, because that was like, there's no way out for him.
And you could feel that. What's interesting in Andy, for you, it's you can feel like him playing cards again, watching this more like actively as opposed to passively. When I watched it the first time, you could tell he was like, okay, I think what Alonzo would do is play cards with them and act like he's not being bothered. And so I understood why he sat down. The first time I watched it, I was like, no, I wouldn't play cards with them. No, I wouldn't do all this stuff. But I think you could tell he was kind of almost trying to beat, like, what would Alonzo do? Alonzo wouldn't care. Alonzo would act like he's untouchable. But then you could also feel that moment when they're like, yeah, Alonzo isn't here anymore. And you could just almost feel how alone he is in this terrifying place.
It's such a scary moment too, when he's playing cards and you see the one guy who is Pablo Escobar in Blow. He stands up and he looks out the window, and I was kind of like, why is he out looking out the window? But I think he was looking to make sure that Denzel had left already. And then you go back to Jake playing poker or playing cards. I was kind of thinking, if I was in Hoyt's position, I would just try to make myself seem super likable. Just be like, hey guys, we're playing cards. And then I keep losing to them and just be like, don't I have a pretty nice personality? But but I don't think they were really going for that there. But that scene is just so intense and so crazy. And those three guys all three are kind of terrifying in their own way. The one guy I don't find quite as scary, but if Tuco wasn't there, I would. Tuco was just so freaking scary.
Yeah.
They all seemed unhinged. They all seemed like they would be more than like when they were about to kill him. You had no doubt. Like, yeah, these are guys that will kill you. And everyone, and something that James had alluded to earlier. All the people that were like around the house, and even in earlier scenes, like in the streets and stuff. I don't know where they got the people playing these, but they did not feel like actors. They felt like it did not look like they went to central casting and just got like some people. Like they did such a good job populating these places with very intimidating people. In these scenes.
Aside from Terry Crews.
Terry Crews is still scary, man. He's jacked.
Extra small tank top.
But James, I want to with this scene, something that the first time I watched it again, not watching passively, it didn't hit me as hard. I felt a little too coincidental. But what I loved about it this time around is them finding the wallet that he picked up earlier, and it being his cousin's wallet, and then figuring that out. When I watched it passively, it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of a convenient way for them to get out of this. But now watching it, what I loved about this is we talked about earlier, Hoyt saving that girl was everything that Alonzo wasn't. And it was the goodness of Hoyt and what him doing all the stuff that he did that was trying to be like Alonzo got him in trouble. But when we look back at the stuff he did, that was what made him. It's what saved his life in this moment.
Yes. His act of bravery, right? Like, and it was so satisfying for it to become that full circle. And I don't know about you, because I kind of get chills doing this. You know, we all love Denzel. Like, who doesn't love Denzel over the years? But that was my first time. I remember like sitting in the theater, like, wow, I'm rooting for someone other than him in the same movie as him. Like, at that point, like, I'm like, yo, I am all in for Hoyt. Like, you know, like, you know, let's get now it's time for him to be vengeance in a sense. Like, it's no more of like that happy-go-lucky. Like, now he's got to go do something. And the respect that those guys gave him, that lets you know how much Alonzo was. He wasn't. I don't know. He was feared, but also people did not like him because he was so crooked. You know, when someone's that crooked, they're not trustworthy. You know, and that's a snake move. He's always like kind of, you know, behaving as a snake. I mean, we know why he was doing everything he's doing in this film, because he was trying to save his bacon, right? You like that cop pig?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
yeah,
nice,
he's trying to, you know,
nice play on words there.
Yeah. So, but I just thought it was funny though when the guys had him in the tub. They were gonna shoot him anyway, and then the guy's like, "I'm gonna call my cousin, and if you're lying, I'm gonna shoot you." You know, he's gonna shoot him in the nether regions, but I was like, you're gonna shoot him anyway, right? Like,
I think he's
gonna really shoot him. Okay, yeah, maybe he's gonna torture him. Yeah, because at that point he doesn't know.
And to me, that scene is so high stakes. Is the girl, because they say she's like 14, so you imagine like a 14-year-old girl, and she starts doing that at first. She's like, yeah, I went to school. It was a great day. Everything was fine. I'm like, oh no.
Don't hang up yet. Just keep asking.
Say, by the way, you wouldn't just be like, oh yeah, something bad happened. You'd be like, oh yeah, no, it's all good.
Yeah, everything's cool. And then the guy kind of pressed, and I'm like, thank God because he could have just been like, oh, it was a nice day. Okay, bye.
Okay, that's all right.
She said it was a nice day.
Boom.
She calls back after they kill Ethan Hawke. Oh, by the way, I was lying.
But the way she described him too, once again, she described a man she described like the brave prince or something. I don't know. It's like very idealistic. You would hope if you're in his situation that you would make all those decisions and like be as brave and like, you know, really like idealistic as he is. And that's as you said, that's what saves him. And I think that's really as a film goer, it was great to see him opposite Alonzo, and it didn't feel like it was too much either way. It was a good yin and yang between both characters.
Why did he pay those guys? Because he gave them a bunch of money. What was
kill
that?
him?
To kill him. That's
what was so crazy.
That was the fee.
That girl was counting the money because they said, "Is it all there?" She's like, "Yeah, it's all there." And I'm like, Ethan Hawke doesn't even know that the money that she's talking about is his death money. Basically,
I thought it had something to do with the Russians. That totally went over my head. So like I was too terrified to think straight. I was like,
Ethan Hawke, he should have asked. So what is that for, guy?
Yeah, what is that money for exactly?
Oh, you'll see. Let's go in the bathtub.
Well, in any case, so Hoyt makes the long walk back to Mendez's place, even getting by Terry Crews, and he tells the kid to hide in a closet. Where then Hoyt confronts Alonzo, and the shootout starts. But Alonzo starts to use his son as leverage and gets away. They fight, they drive, and eventually Hoyt gets the upper hand, and the gang surrounds them. Alonzo offers to pay someone to kill Hoyt, but no one takes him up on it. They put a gun on the street, and as Alonzo goes to grab it, he gets shot in the butt. Hoyt takes the badge and leaves as the gang turns on Alonzo, but Alonzo remains defiant. While driving away, the Russians finally catch up and deliver the street justice to Alonzo that Alonzo had sentenced out to so many people so many times before. This was the end, James. This is the end of the movie. This is where everything kind of comes together, and we see Alonzo basically as bad as he can be, and it all comes back to catch him.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, as you said, when he's kind of using his, I couldn't understand, because I think the beauty of it is when he's speaking Spanish, they're not saying the translation of it. So unless you like know those words, like you can tell he's talking to him, and basically kind of using his son as collateral. And, you know, but once again, he's trying to save himself. You know, he's got to get this money to the Russians. And, you know, the way, first of all, it's great. They have their little fight on top of the roof. I don't know how Ethan Hawke, if for some reason, like, is able to jump off of the roof and land on the car and still like hold on to it as Lonzo's like driving around. It's
in his head through the window.
His head
through the window.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, once again, this is probably this movie is filled with iconic lines and scenes, and this whole I'm gonna put you all in, Pelican Bay, and King Kong ain't got nothing on me.
That's the line of the movie.
It's such a man. He's such a damn good actor, man. I mean, he's so powerful, because at that point he has no gun. Even him saying, "You shot me in the ass," like, it's funny and it's defiant. He's actually very funny in this role too. But I mean, this, as I said, this is a theatrically trained actor. All of us have like really followed his career. He's done a lot of stage work, and this is a very stagey scene. This is the kind of scene you would see at a theater. It's not like small for like a film, and it's Shakespearean. Once again, he's done a lot of Shakespeare. So that's like, because you're seeing that one character, he finally has run out of like those 9 lives and controlling people. He has no control. But I mean, he's just so defiant and so powerful still, even though he has no power left, at least in the way he delivers his lines. And I mean, I thought it was kind of funny. They kept putting the camera on like an old black man. they kept showing like this older black guy out. Yeah, he just kind of shaking his head at him. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, son. Then there's kids out. I'm like, what time is it? Like, all these people are outside.
It's still only 6. Only 6 p.m. Well, he does a great job though when Ethan Hawke gets to Eva Mendes's house. He's like, "Oh, you passed the test." Almost like kind of like trying. He will never like admit that he was wrong or that he tried to do this stuff to him. So like,
congratulations, you made detective. I was like, that's some funny shit when he said that.
Right.
Like, really?
And just has a shootout with his son in the room. I just thought that was kind of crazy too. Literally got like a shotgun, just blasted, not even knowing where his son is.
I thought that was the perfect way to show that this guy just is not a good person. Because I was going to say, one of the things I noticed this time around too is clearly Alonzo's a bad guy, and he does things the wrong way. But at the same time, he only ever really wronged criminals throughout this movie. So there was this part of me that's like, as I was watching this, he actually hasn't really. There's definitely a skewed moral code here, but at the same time, it is focusing on catching bad guys and doing things to bad guys. But I think with the son in the room was a very big moment to say, no, this is a terrible person. This is not just a crooked cop. Like, he's using his son as like a shield to save himself in this scene. And so I actually thought that was a very important part to really go over the edge of, no, this guy is beyond redemption. He's not a good person. It's not just that he has a skewed moral code on how to do good either.
And why do you think he left Ethan Hawke there? Like, he was beating his ass and then just like left him there. Why don't you think he like did like the final kill shot? Like, he just kind of left. It's
he likes Ethan Hawke,
but why didn't he kill him?
He likes him. And it's a movie, right? What they do, they explain, the bad guy explains all of his plans to the guy that's tied up, and then he leaves his lackeys to go do the kill while he leaves the room. Right? He doesn't want to see it through. And I mean, I think he really likes Hoyt. he likes him to a certain extent. Because at this point, he just needs his money. You know, he could have killed him. No, he could have.
I mean, he
and
just
I mean, in
paid people to
hindsight, he
kill him,
should have. I mean,
Yeah.
for his character to get away with everything.
I thought there was also a part of him, like his character doesn't do things himself. He gets other people to do things for him.
Nice.
Which is like, yeah, like the mastermind at the end of every film. It's always like he doesn't do the dirty work; all his minions do.
Because even at the end, he's like, "I'll pay someone to kill this guy," which I get the Russians why they had to be the ones to do it, but there was a part of me that thought the gang should have killed him. I felt like they were the ones that had been wronged, and they were the ones.
I thought they did. I was actually watching with my wife, and I'm like, watch out, this is what happens. And then that didn't happen. I'm like, oh, I remembered it. I thought they did all shoot him. But Denzel says a great line to them, aside obviously the King Kong line and all that. It's great. But he says, you can shoot me, but you can't kill me.
Oh,
I thought that was interesting. But he's right. They didn't kill him. So that was surprising.
He did get shot, though.
He did get shot. Yes.
And yes.
Yeah, I did. I was thinking this too as the movie ended. That's your first day, pal.
Yeah,
you gotta wake up. You gotta wake up early tomorrow and do it again. Tuesday.
His wife's like, "You're home so late. God, you missed all this stuff. Will you help me with the baby?" And he's like,
"Of course." And that's what would happen. Like he'd have to come home and change a diaper. You know, she wouldn't like bat an eye because, like I said, she's been with the baby all this time. Now it's your turn.
This is one of those movies too where I always like to think about what happens after. This doesn't end well for Hoyt, by the way, because he's still got those like 5 other guys who probably want him dead now that their buddy got killed because of him and all that money was taken. This doesn't go well for him. Like this isn't a happy ending for him, really.
No,
I mean maybe for the moviegoers where the story ends, but tomorrow
he's about to go under witness protection. Pretty much.
I was going to say, I think he's going to call in sick tomorrow.
He's going to call in sick and think about some things.
Hey, honey, I think we have to move to a new state.
Yeah, we're moving to Iowa.
Yeah,
I did have a question. I don't know if you guys caught this. When the Russians were shooting the shit out of him, like they were really making sure he was dead. He yells something out. Did you notice that?
Does he?
Denzel yells. It almost sounds like I had to rewind it, but the closed caption didn't give me anything. But it sounds like he yells like Bobby, and then they shoot. And I'm like, wait, who's Bobby? I'm like, I don't think there's anybody named Bobby. I'm like, was his son Bobby? I don't know. If you watch it again, listen to him. Like as they're shooting him, I didn't catch it either. My wife did, and she's like, he yelled out something. No, he didn't. Then we rewound it, and he does, but I don't know. Sounds like Bobby.
Blaze of glory. I mean,
Bobby.
I mean, he's doing like the whole thing, and most people they do that. It might look fake, but it's still. I mean, that's how much. I don't know how much lead they pumped into him, but only a character like his would take that much. Like you got to have like 10 guys with like assault rifles that all just like unload on him to get him out of there. Like that's how iconic of a character he is.
It shows how powerful the character is too, that you kind of need something like that to feel like he's dead. Like you needed to see a definitive, oh, he's dead. Because if you had done the thing where like they shoot him in the chest and leave him, you'd be like, what if he lived?
Yeah.
You know? But with him, you're like, yeah, you've got to
I think
put him down.
That's a great point.
I don't think he's walking away from that one.
that would be hilarious.
He gets up.
Like, I'm King Kong.
I know, right?
Have the 2 guns together.
Start rubbing them. Training Day 2. But that was the movie. Like I said, I actually enjoyed this more the second time. I think I feel like I picked up a lot more from it this time around. Absolutely intense, James. I think your commentary of him being almost like a horror movie villain was very true, because it's something you can't get away from him, you know? And I feel like for the most part, you could release a movie like this today and it would still be just as good. I think the story and everything that plays out is great. I mean, obviously you have to update a few things, but as far as fashion and stuff goes or whatever, but like
iPhones
and things, but But for the most part, this was a great movie. One of the things I love about the show is getting to revisit movies like this, and this was fantastic. James, you're the guest, so you get the last word. But Andy, what did you think? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, even this time around, I just really enjoyed the storytelling more than I did probably the last time, but the performances are crazy good. I mean, just seeing Denzel and Ethan Hawke together. I was just thinking, being Ethan Hawke, he's a great actor, but just to be like, oh God, I got to go against this, like that had to be such a challenge, but also probably so fun too. Just crazy good, just everything. I still can't believe it was a 70 something. That's ridiculous. And they turned it into a TV series, right, with Bill Paxton, which I never saw. But
you're right, they did.
So I don't know how that was, but
yeah,
it was definitely like a movie where I don't think it ever should have had like a sequel or anything. It was kind of like that was your movie, that's it, you know.
Yeah, I can't believe this movie's like 21 years old. It looks great still.
That is crazy. Yeah, because everything looks still very gritty and similar to, like, I think it's the same writer, maybe even director as End of Watch with
David Ayer. I saw that. I was
really?
shocked. I was like, that makes perfect sense because he, an End of Watch, as you said, like he's very gritty LA.
Kind of similar. It looks like
movies.
almost like the similar year, even. You know, it's not that, doesn't look that different.
Nope.
Yeah, aged very well. James, any final thoughts on this one to tie a bow on it?
Yeah, I just, this is, I mean, Denzel's had these iconic movies, obviously Glory, Malcolm X. I'm just naming a couple.
Philadelphia.
Obviously. Philadelphia.
Be here all day naming great.
Yeah, we could be here all day naming like iconic roles he has.
John Q.
John Q. Yeah, that's a good one too. But this one is probably the one that's like stands out the most because, like I said, he's never done a role like this before or after. Even if he played kind of a crooked person with the other, well-rated Rotten Tomatoes movie we saw, Safe House, he's not that crooked. Like, even though he's a kind of a bad guy in that, but he's, misunderstood. Just a masterful performance. And this time I noticed he was having fun playing this role. And there was a lot of comedy, the perfect, what do you say, like comedy and tragedy together and everything in between. That was like what this role was for him. And I mean, he hit it out the park.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if he had a lot of fun with it too. I mean, obviously it seems like he had fun with it, but I wonder if a lot of it was because he wasn't thinking about being the typical Denzel Washington and being like, I get to be something different and kind of, people talk about how it's fun to be like the Joker or whatever, where you can be like totally over the top with certain things. And I wonder if he felt a little freeing doing that, but
I'm sure. Yeah.
And speaking of great actors, though, and really top of the world actors, Kevin Bacon. We do a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon to end this show. Andy Rossi, can you connect someone from this movie to Kevin Bacon in 6 moves?
Of course. I tried to put it in earlier. Denzel Washington was in Philadelphia with Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks was in Apollo 13 with Kevin Bacon.
Attaboy.
Bing, bang, boom.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Real easy.
Well, that does it for us. This the next couple movies we're doing, we're going to be reviewing. Speaking of great performances from great actors, we're going to go to 2002 to talk about Scorpion King.
Oh wow!
With
there you go.
The debut of The Rock as a leading man. Then we're going to 2003 for Mystic River, which is actually a well-acted movie. Very strange do-si-do movies to go from Training Day to Scorpion King to Mystic River, but that's what we're doing. And then we go to Spider-Man 2. We're going to check that out from 2004. That's the future for us. You can check me out at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. Andy Rossi, where can we find you, what you're working on, and Dead Body the movie on Amazon?
Yeah, find me at Just Andy Rossi and Dead Bodies on Amazon and Tubi.
Check it out. That's what I watched Training Day.
Training Day.
Yeah.
Crackle, here we come. Crackle's next. Okay.
Taking over Crackle. And James Shippy, where can the world find you and what you're working on these days?
Yeah, you can find me at JShippy2 on Twitter and at JEShippy2 on Instagram. And if you happen to be curious about some Portland local news, you can catch me on KXL in the mornings. I'm a producer there, so it's a new gig I got, and I do updates as well. So
very cool. That voice needs to be on the radio. Come on, what are we even doing if we're not sending that out to the world?
Hey, I got to put this voice to work, man. Pay these bills. So.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being on. It's always a treat. That does it for us. That does it for 2001. Thank you for everyone who's watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe, 5-star review. That does it for us, and we'll see you all next year.